Just a minute, a second. Yes, we are live now.
Great. Again, like before you went live, Paul, we were just saying a big thank you to Vincent for finding time to join us again today in what I believe will be a very exciting conversation in the subject of blockchain. Vincent, karibu sana.
Karibu.
You, you say asante sana.
Asante sana.
Yeah, okay, yeah, well done. So, Paul, if you could start us off briefly by telling us what ABYA is all about and what we are trying to do in this forum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julian. For those who are watching or viewing this show for the very first time, my name is Paul Makolaka, co-founder and executive director of Africa Blockchain Youth Ambassadors, or ABYA. ABYA is a Pan-African initiative created to promote literacy, adoption of blockchain, Web3, and cryptocurrency in Africa through awareness, knowledge, skills, and application among university students. Our focus on the youth is informed by the fact that Africa's youth make up a significant proportion of the population, but they are often left out of the formal economy and lack access to opportunities. This lack of access prevents them from thriving, resulting in high levels of unemployment and poverty, as well as social and political marginalization. And as a result, Africa cannot reach its full potential. The youth are the future leaders of the continent, and if given opportunity, they have the potential to become change makers. By investing in Africa's youth with future-proof skills, networking opportunities, and other programs, we are not only empowering individuals, but also benefiting society as a whole as well. These young people have the potential to make a real difference in the world, and we are proud to be supporting them on this journey. Thank you, Dr. Julian. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. That is very well articulated. Ladies and gentlemen, those who will be watching this after this live event, my name is Dr. Julian Rower. I am the Director of Strategy and Quality Assurance at African Blockchain Youth Ambassadors, also known as ABYA. I'm a scholar practitioner. I enjoy the process of bridging the gap between theory and practice, having just very recently earned my doctorate from the University of Liverpool. I enjoy intense conversations, and we've had one such as this, those with Vincent, and I'm so glad that we're having it again for the second time. A big enthusiast of blockchain technology. I also wear another hat, that of the CEO of Schedules Business and Management Consulting. We intervene on workplace based problems. Now, for the viewers, those who are attending this session today, should you have any comments, should you have any questions that you wish to ask, feel free to post your comments. In the fullness of time, when this conversation is done with Vincent, we'll invite you to make your comment or we'll read your comment over to him. With those few remarks, Vincent, you've been here before, but maybe there's something you'd like to tell your viewers listening to today's production. What would you like us to know about Vincent Choi and what do you do?
Hi. Thanks for inviting me again. I'm very happy. I think we had a very good discussion the first time round and very happy to continue it. It's a very interesting topic, law and regulation in blockchain. Personally, I'm the co-founder and chief ecosystem architect of Oz Finance. It's a crypto blockchain project based out of the Philippines. This is a very interesting topic because we, as a project, we basically work directly with the government in the establishment of a free trade zone, or what we call a special economic zone, that we want to develop into a digital asset, offshore digital asset financial center, focusing a lot on what's happening in the blockchain cryptocurrency world today and in Web3. So we have spent a lot of time on the project, nearly three over years, on ensuring that the legal framework, the regulatory framework behind what we want to do is right, protects consumers, and yet be at the same time commercial and innovative, to the growth and encourage the growth of the country and bring in foreign direct investment into the country properly. So one of our first use cases that we've done, this is a plug really on what we've done for the government of the Philippines, was really to tokenize their digital residency program, or to create a digital residency program through tokens. So simply by owning and staking our tokens, we're able to live and work anywhere in the Philippines, tax-free, with no minimum stay requirements, and that required uh, a very big paradigm shift in regulatory frameworks, in understanding regulations, and basically ensuring that it works to the benefit of the people and the country.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And now would like to dive deeper in the conversation of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, as Vincent has ably mentioned, we are discussing law, regulation, and blockchain. So, Vincent, let me engage you a little here. There's been a lot of talk about innovation and regulation. Some people say regulations to follow innovation, and there are different thinking around that issue. What should precede or succeed the other? When you're looking at innovation and regulation, and what should inform the other, what are your views?
Okay, I think before I start, I'd like to be very clear. I'm not a lawyer, neither am I
Yeah,
legally trained.
correct.
I have done many blockchain projects, and because we do that projects, I'm then exposed to the law and the regulation and or the changing regulations of which is work. I'm definitely not familiar with what's the legal framework in Kenya.
Yeah.
I've never done any projects there. I've done projects in Singapore, in Thailand, in Philippines, in about 8 to 9 countries right now in Asia, but never any in Kenya. So please do not take whatever I say as legal advice or
Okay.
it's really for educational information and entertainment purposes only. Right. I give a disclaimer like a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer.
You've done that very well.
I work with
we,
enough of them to copy the disclaimer.
we are happy with your professional view, so don't worry about it.
So, when it comes to regulation and innovation, it's a very interesting conversation. I don't think that um, any should precede any. Really, it goes hand in hand. Uh, a regulatory framework should be flexible enough to encourage innovation. And when I say innovation, it's not innovation for innovation's sake. It's innovation for people's sake and innovation for commerciality's sake. There's no point pursuing innovation if it benefits nobody, right? I mean, sure, you can bend over backwards on regulations, but if it benefits nobody, why are you doing it? Technically. So innovate is really regulations. Uh, to the core of regulation and law, what does it need to do? It basically exists to protect people. So the people is really at the core of it. It's not really. I don't see innovation I don't think regulation should be chasing after innovation, but regulation should be chasing after innovation that benefits the people.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about blockchain and decentralization and why is it such a big deal, right? People pursue blockchain and decentralization because it is in the belief, and I say belief, but it's also is in the hopes that it removes middlemen, it reduces friction, it creates a trustless environment in such a way that transactions costs can be reduced and the people can benefit from the transaction costs being reduced, right? So this is in a way what the people benefit for blockchain decentralization. However, you think about it on that context. Now, if you have regulation that says, sure, blockchain is good, but let's only let the banks do it, implement this technology. What is going to happen is that the cost savings are not going to be passed down to the people.
Yeah.
The cost savings, and we've seen this happen a lot of times in blockchain implementations, the cost savings is then going to become what we call a profit margin of the bank. So the regulation made it clear. It created a safe, stable system, but in the end did not take advantage of the did not manage to take advantage of the core benefits of decentralization technology that pass on these benefits to the people. So there's a failure in policy, right? So uh, ultimately, my view on regulations really has to do that. Ultimately, it's still regulations serve the people, you and me, and the youth, everybody. Regulations is supposed to protect them from scams, from dishonest actors in our, unfortunately, in our industry. But it's also supposed to bring the benefits of decentralization down to the people so that they can enjoy all these benefits that we are thinking of bringing about to the world. Um, so really, I mean, that's my main comment on regulations.
Thank you, Vincent. And I don't doubt you've done projects where the government is a stakeholder and the government has its expectations and its interests as well. Again, from a professional view, what do you think would worry governments or worries governments the most? If somebody was to ask you that, there's so much going on. There's the blockchain, a platform that will change how people interact. There's machine learning, there's artificial intelligence, there's smart contracting. There are all these things that are happening. There are so many balls in the air. I'm looking at government as a stakeholder, and from your considered view, what are these things that are worrying governments about all the changes that we are seeing today or the developments we are seeing today?
I don't think the government is worried insofar as they don't understand what is
Mhm.
going on,
Yeah.
and a lot of the fault, and I say this in the best possible meaning, is that a lot of the fault that why governments don't understand what's going on is because we wrap blockchain in a whole bunch of jargon and
Uh-huh.
technical language, and then try to explain it to the government as if something like this doesn't exist and have never existed before, and so it's not under any regulations. This is what we are at fault of doing as an industry. We go up to the government and say, this is new, this has never been done before, we are not regulated by you because you have nothing covering it. But hey, actually, if you dive and dig into it, these regulations already exist. It's just applied in a different way, right?
Um,
The communication failure is amazing. You get a 27-year-old guy or 22-year-old kid that all about consensus mechanisms, decentralization, AI, all that kind of stuff, and going up to talk to a 70-year-old regulator and trying to say, we have not existed before. Hey, my friend, you have not lived long enough. Read the law. Technically, whatever you're talking about exists in some structure in there. You just have to tweak it around and communicate it into a way that I understand it so I can pass it as a law. It- I see that all the time. It's like, we make things unnecessarily complicated. You know, when we want to, you know, when we did what we did with the Philippine government and we said, hey, why not tokens can be used for residency? The law has already been around for 30 years. People invest in the country, they are able to reside in the country. The recognition of token staking as an investment is not very far-fetched. All I need to do is explain what token staking actually is. Taking their tokens and locking it up. If I lock it up in a government wallet, doesn't it mean that the investment goes into the country? It does. So why are we, recomplicating so many things, trying to say, no, 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 this has never been heard before, but it is. If you actually find in our whole 200, 300 years of legal history, you're definitely going to find commonalities. You're going to find things that these have been discussed before, and it's about changing our paradigm, changing our jargon, changing our technologies talk into
Interesting.
something the regulators can understand. You know,
Interesting.
they want to ultimately help the people. Again, this is why regulators exist. This is why governments exist. They want to protect and they want to help the people. We have to we as an industry have to change the way we communicate to make sure that the government and the regulators understand and not the other way around. We
Yeah.
keep saying, no, the government don't understand. The government don't understand. Of course they understand. You're not communicating it in the right way. You are going up to consensus mechanisms that is a vote. Everybody just agrees on what is right and what is wrong. That's it. Majority wins. Why are you making it so complicated? So
So let me hold your thought there for a minute, Vincent. Blockchain brings other dynamics at play, and maybe you'll also say those dynamics are already with us. But I'm looking at jurisdictional complexities. I see blockchain as borderless. Blockchain is peer to peer. The central mechanisms of of a central pool where everything is governed, that enables everything else to happen, is being dismantled or disabled. And then the question of jurisdictional complexity comes in. So as you're saying that the law is there, the language is what is complex, we need to break it down. Talk to us about jurisdictional complexities which blockchain is bringing about.
So let me challenge you on that, right? You say that okay, blockchain. I agree with you. Blockchain is borderless. Blockchain is online activity, and that's why you can tear down walls. That I agree. However, companies have been using offshoring rules and regulations to do business all over the world with international jurisdictions
Yeah.
for centuries.
And
For at least 80 years. If you think about offshore structures, why do we have people who set up BVI, Cayman Islands, set up a Malta situation? These offshore structures are meant to move your business jurisdiction flag from one point to another point. And there are a lot of similarities in how that law can be applied when you look at blockchain transactions. It is not an entirely new thing. Right. Yes, we can say, oh, is this on the internet? But the internet also exists on the server and is this somewhere? What about international treaties? What about international organizations? They exist in a space of international law as treaties between different countries. Why? Which in essence is the internet. Different countries coming together is like forming transactions based on a international legal platform. Why not shift the paradigm? Maybe blockchain protocol can be governed under the same laws that govern the UN, where
yeah.
different countries sign an international treaty that recognizes it as an international legal organization. Right. So it's really about opening our eyes and trying to find the past precedents and trying to find a reference. Yes, some things need to be tweaked. I completely agree that regulations need to catch up. We're not saying, but because of the way we communicate and the way we say, hey, there is no such thing in the world, regulators get scared. You are asking them to go and break ground in something that they don't understand. But if I can find something similar and I can tell the regulator, look, this offshoring mechanism has been around for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. This is all the businessmen in the world that are already doing this. This is how it's all similar. And this is how much we need to tweak
Uh-huh.
in order to make this regulation
Interesting.
make sense in its
Yeah.
totality. Right. This then brings the regulator on board. This then brings the regulator to your level, to our level, to
Yeah.
be able to say, yes, it is very similar. All I need to do is change this little bit, and tada, it's a new law, it's a new regulation, and it applies to blockchain.
Yeah.
See, we are trying too hard to be too difficult.
We are trying too hard to be too difficult.
Yes, I totally think so. We are trying our best to be so difficult
Interesting.
because
Very interesting. Very
I don't know.
interesting.
We're trying to sound smart or something. I don't know, but this is not like I said, you don't send a 25-year-old guy to talk to a 70-year-old regulator using newfangled language that they don't understand.
Very interesting.
Draw
Very,
references.
very, very interesting, Charles. I would never have given it that perspective. You've given it a very interesting twist. Very, very interesting. So, what would you tell this writer? I've forgotten his name, but it is not my quote. So, I'm quoting someone. A writer who said, or rather asked the question rhetorically, is blockchain transparency a solution to legal uncertainty? I know you've already debunked the issue of law and regulation and how complicated or difficult we make it look. But I'm now spinning the conversations a little. Is blockchain transparency a solution to legal uncertainty, assuming there's legal uncertainty?
Is it uncertainty or is it insanity?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that word. So could you mind spelling it?
Okay, let me see if I can get a synonym for it. I'm asking, is blockchain transparency a solution to legal uncertainty? Simply means not being certain, not being
Uncertainty.
sure,
Sorry.
not being sure,
My
not being clear.
yeah. It's my accent. Sorry.
It's also my accent. Sorry about that.
No problem. So, is blockchain transparency a solution to legal uncertainty?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Blockchain transparency. Blockchain is a ledger, right?
Yeah.
Blockchain is a ledger. Basically, it records transactions from one point to another point. It makes auditing very clear. I'm not sure how it makes legal very clear. First of all, laws again are wrapped around people. That's why you have. That's why laws evolve, right? It evolves with people, evolves with time. Um, the immutability factor of blockchain, I'm not sure if it helps in the legal context. Again, I'm a big fan of people. I still feel that whatever technology, whatever law, whatever regulations have to be, wrapped around the person and have to serve the bigger community. So, no. It does, however, very interestingly, blockchain transparency, in the ideal world, basically makes it very hard for you to then hide illicit activities.
Yeah.
Because by right, if everything is on the ledger, everything is very clear, you from where the money comes in all the way to where the money exits, it's all on the ledger. By right, you can't hide illicit activities. So blockchain or cryptocurrency is a little bit of a juxtaposition. It's supposed to be transparent, but because of its anonymous nature, or the ability to become anonymous, that then creates a interesting paradox. Where where it's supposed to be transparent, yet now it is not transparent at the same time.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Paul, would you like to react? I'm giving you just exactly 2 minutes to react to what Choi has told us so far. And then we move to the next segment of questions. But I find this, as posited by Choi, I find it very refreshing and very interesting. He speaks about we are trying too hard to be difficult. Paul, if you could quickly react to that and everything else that Paul has mentioned, but just in 2 minutes so that we can move into the next segment. Paul, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Julian. Now, when it comes to legal uncertainty, these are interpretational issues, which now I don't think a technology can solve that. As Choi rightfully puts it, this has to be wrapped around people.
Yeah.
So it's only people who can discuss these uncertainties and be able to have a way forward. Because when it comes to technology like blockchain, For them, they solve a different area that is not necessarily within the purview of uncertainty or certainty. So I think that's a very different, I would say, a different area altogether that blockchain does not necessarily solve. Because when it comes to uncertainty, you are looking at issues of interpretation, whether, for example, uh, your border reaches here or not. Those are things that have to be discussed at a political level that blockchain will not necessarily solve. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. And that's a good place to ask you, Paul, to share the message from our sponsors. Then I can move on to the next segment with our very good panelist, Vincent Choi. Over to you, Paul.
Enterprise blockchains have limitless potential, but privacy is a major challenge. How can businesses secure their private transactions on a public network, especially when enterprise blockchains have been closed, unaudited, centralized? Introducing Polygon Nightfall, designed for the needs of enterprises. Nightfall uses a hybrid approach to scaling to give enterprises an option that was considered impossible. ZK rollups keep transactions private on a public network. Optimistic rollups offer efficient, scalable transactions. Secured by Ethereum, Nightfall means trust, transparency, and credibility. Aiming to disrupt the $50 trillion global supply chain industry, Polygon Nightfall unlocks the true potential of enterprise blockchains and empowers businesses to connect and scale in powerful new ways. Polygon Nightfall. Mainnet Beta is now live.
To our viewers, Polygon is a layer 2 blockchain that aims to help Ethereum with its scalability. By acting as a layer 2 protocol, Polygon doesn't aim to duplicate Ethereum's functionality. Instead, it helps to improve transaction speed and lower costs for developers. Polygon is one of our partners who believed in what we are trying to do to empower university students. So that is what the video that you just played is all about. Thank you. Back to you, Dr.
Thank you so much, Paul. Vincent, today I will squeeze all the juice from your portal of intellect.
Is Catherine still joining us? Is
somebody joining us, Paul?
I don't know. Is Catherine still joining us? Or not?
No,
not
I haven't, because if she follows the link, she'll just come straight to this.
No problem.
So, yeah. Okay. I mean, it would be good to hear from an actual lawyer. I'm not.
No. Yeah, we will have a segment where we have an actual lawyer. But what we like about your contribution today is you're giving us perspective. You're giving us things to think about. You're giving us some knowledge that we need to explore from. So that's a beautiful place to be, Choi, and we really appreciate you for that. So I'm still going to push you a little.
Sure.
On what looks legal, but I'm looking for your professional view. Smart contracts, lawyers, and the law. I repeat, smart contracts, lawyers, and the law. Is smart contracts a substitution to the law?
Okay, so depends on what body of law you're talking about. I'm assuming you're talking about contract law. If a smart contract basically okay, again, I'm not sure about contract law in Kenya. Contract law here in Singapore is basically a meeting of the minds, as well as there are certain conditions you need to fulfill. It doesn't matter if it's coded. It doesn't matter if it's on the back of a napkin. It doesn't matter if it's on a formal piece of paper prepared by lawyers. That contract is a legally binding piece of document between two parties, as long as the certain criteria is fulfilled. I believe it is called. I believe the criteria were the meeting of minds and consideration. These are the two main parts of a contract. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I studied contract law all the way in 20, 30 years ago in school. So please, my knowledge might not be that refreshed. So that being said, a smart contract that technically fulfills all of that functions if the two parties of the smart contract transaction actually have meeting of mind, as well as, of course, there's consideration because of the tokens that change hands from one party to the other party. It should be recognized in law. I think in many countries it already is. I'm not sure in Kenya. Again, please enlighten me. If your legal system recognizes smart contracts.
Paul, does our legal system recognize smart contracts? Not as yet, in my thinking.
Not as yet. Not as yet.
Not as yet. Yeah. Not as yet.
Yep.
So that's very, very interesting. I mean, I was talking to some lawyers earlier today, and when I was preparing for this segment, and one strongly believed that even with smart contracting, you'll still need the legal side of the law for enforcement. And I argued that enforcement is built within the same contract, and I could have been wrong. Vincent, your reaction? Paul's reaction.
It is. Now, unfortunately, smart contracts are only as good as the oracles that feed it information. And this is where the point of failure would possibly be. Because although the transaction might have occurred, there may be error points on the oracle feeding the information in. And that then results in not so much enforcement, but probably clawbacks or people arguing that the contract was actually not fulfilled in its entirety, and what happens when there's an error in the smart contract? If someone codes it wrongly, right, you get a subpar developer that then does something wrong, and then Oracle feeds in wrong information and the money is released. I mean, what is your restitution and what is your how do you get clawback that amount, right? So all these are all things that you need to look at. In credit cards, we have what we call chargeback risk, where the risk falls on the vendor as well as on the provider of the payment services. In blockchain, we don't, right? Once the tokens are released, they're released, and then you can tumble it, move it across multiple wallets, and it will never be seen again. So how do you then recover that, right? So and what then is your legal rights and obligations as it is? So I don't have the right answer. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Again, this is better answered by a lawyer. But think about it this way, right? I always talk about past precedents. If you receive in your bank account $1 million today, and it's an error of the bank, can you keep that money? The answer is no, right?
Yeah.
The bank will claw it back from you. It will sue you to get it back. And if you bought something with that money, they will force you to liquidate that something and to get back the money, right? So does it mean that if you have a error in your smart contract, you are able to keep the money that you have if you didn't fulfill the terms of the contract? I would think that it should follow the same law. You shouldn't.
Interesting. Very, very interesting perspective. Paul, if you could react very quickly.
Yeah. So basically, you remember, Dr. Julian, some time back we had this sort of conversation, and we agreed that fundamentals never change. Fundamentals remain the same. Correct. Whether in space, whether on Earth, whether the fundamentals should never change. So the same thing, and I think one of the things that I'm likely going to see is that as we move forward, there will be a need to train people at the judiciary to be able on something that we call a pseudo code, so that pseudo code is not necessarily a code, but it is a readable text of what a code looks like. Yeah, so that we need to have a scenario whereby our judges, our lawyers, our paralegal officers, they need to understand what these contracts look like, because smart contract is basically an if statement that if you do this, this happens. If we do this, this happens. And like in the financial services sector, as Choi earlier rightfully said, like for example, let's say like for example, the central banks, their function is to take care of the interests of the public. That is their main function. And so, for example, in the tradition of finance, we have mechanisms, for example, whereby if something goes wrong, there's a cost for that. Yeah. That let's say, for example, if normally, for example, somebody can take a loan from a commercial bank, and let's say if the person dies, an insurance that had already been taken would be able to cover this person so that it continues to pay for that loan. Yeah. So those are some of the recourses that we have within the within the tradition of finance. So I don't see a reason why the same concept should not be able to apply even in decentralized finance, so that because there are always inherent risks, whether in traditional finance or in decentralized finance. So we cannot bury ourselves in the sand and pretend that, and even imagine that that within for example, the decentralized finance, that we have a perfect system. There's no system that can be perfect. So, and remember that these smart contracts are written by human beings. Errors can happen. Anything can go wrong. So we need to understand that, we have to have mechanisms that can address the inherent risk that will always be there. Thank you, Dr. Julian.
Very, very well put. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm with Vincent Choi, calling all the way from Singapore, and the conversation continues. Vincent, I'd like to draw your attention to something else which I would like your comment on. The crash of the crypto in, I think, 2017, 2018. Would you assign that crash to lack of law and regulation, or if you like, the enforcement of it? If you are to apportion considerable or considerate explanation to the crash, and if I put it to you that lack of law and regulations or lack of proper enforcement caused it to happen, what would be your reaction?
You don't want to know what I really think. What I attribute to the crash is two main things. One, human greed. Two, the lack of education on what they actually do. It goes back to my previous talk to you guys about tokenomics, right? Yeah. These projects and their token prices are totally divorced. I mean, you have like I said, the maximum amount of money you're going to make from selling 100% of this of the services of this particular project is $1 million, but the tokens are trading at a $10 billion valuation.
Yeah.
Of course, you're expecting it to crash. I mean, it's just a sense. It is just basic human common sense. But somehow, in our industry, in crypto, people somehow lost that sense. Unfortunately, the what they say, right? Common sense is the least common of all, right? It's like people feel you ask if you want to know what really caused the crash. Talk to 100 people who have invested in crypto. Ask them exactly what cryptocurrencies they have in the portfolio, and then ask them to explain exactly how that crypto makes money for the company. I can guarantee you that 99% of people will have no freaking clue. Sorry, excuse my French. No clue at all what the hell they're buying, what they're trading. They have absolutely zero clue, right? And if that is 99% of the market, are you surprised it crashed?
Yeah. Interesting.
right? There's nothing the regulators can ban you from buying it. Sure, that is like banning stupidity. You know, like I ban you, and I want a law to stop you from being stupid. That's right, you know. But it's difficult.
That is so hilarious, Joy.
Yeah.
Point made.
Yeah, sorry,
You
that's
could
the
not have
best way I can put it
articulated
across,
it.
man.
You could not have said it any better. Hello, I get the stupidity. I like that. I like that. Let me take you somewhere else. Let me take you
Sure,
somewhere else.
please.
DAOs.
Okay, I like DAOs. Okay,
DAOs.
what are we doing
Yeah,
with the DAOs?
DAOs is conceptualized. The need to, the way they should be governed. And looking at DAOs relative to laws and regulations. What is your take on that, on DAOs?
Okay, so it's interesting you mentioned DAOs. We are looking a lot at DAOs. In the free trade zone that we're acting out of the Philippines, we are looking and we're working with a whole set of law firms to actually create a actual legal system for DAOs, the legal recognition of DAOs as as an entity, and how the rights and benefits and rights benefits as well as the liabilities that function as a DAO right now is too uncertain. Everybody thinks of a DAO in their own way, and unfortunately, in such a circumstance, uh, your view is your view, and your view doesn't win the view of the guy with a gun, right? So the regulators get to call whatever they want to call because there is no protections, there's no legal protections for anything. So if you, for example, let me give you an example. If you form a DAO in the US, right, and you forgot to make it a limited liability company, or you didn't set up it to be a limited liability company, the actual reading of the law means that any one of the members of the DAO could be personally liable for any of the personal bankruptcy of any other member of the DAO. That means your personal assets is up for a creditor's take stake if any other member of the DAO goes bankrupt. Obviously, that is not what you guys thought about when you set up the DAO and you wanted that DAO to function, right? Again, I'm not a lawyer. This is what my lawyer told me, so I'm just paraphrasing. I got it wrong. Why, when she said why you should not settle down in the US, this is what she was telling me. In that context, I think some country or somebody needs to really sit down, look at the different type of DAOs out there, and then create some sort of a, it's very funny. Why did people set up DAOs? They say, oh, DAOs are different, so I'm not under your regulation. That is so far away from the truth. As long as you stay there, I can come after you. And because you don't have proper rules and you don't have proper laws and you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to get you however I want. That's the truth. The truth is not, no, this is different. If you're not under your jurisdiction, bullshit, I'm still going to catch you. I throw you in jail and figure it out later. This is the truth, right? Your views and opinion is not as important as the guy with the gun. So DAOs will have a future. I believe a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of countries are already looking into it. But it is not what the community or what the industry thinks it is going to be. Unregulated space is not. It has to become, because the regulations is what gives you protections when you join a DAO, and that has to be very clear. I mean, I give you a very good example. What happens if all of the members of the DAO vote to convert all of the assets to the DAOs into buying weapons and sending it to Russia? That's, of course, illegal under the current UN sanctions. But a DAO can decide to do that. The DAO can vote on that. where is the protections and where is the what you call that? Where are the safeguards or safe rails, right? Um, this has to be addressed for the future of a DAO to become popular.
That is very, very, very powerful. I'm looking at the conventional corporate entity as we know them. I'm looking at DAO with the promise that it brings, and I look at your opinion on why it will not be, this is how we do our business, because that's how DAOs have largely been structured to look like. And I'm thinking here, Choi, I'm trying to get the right phrase here. In reality, and I'm veering away from the discussion of the day, which is law and regulation, but based on that, in reality, can we have a DAO that is fully fledged and fully functional without some kind of oversight?
Okay, to answer that question, let's go back to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Why do people have DAOs?
Yeah.
What about the corporate structure is wrong in such a way that a DAO is better?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you think a DAO is solving? What do you guys think a DAO is solving?
Paul, what is DAO solving?
Now, I think fundamentally the DAO solves the problem that we've had for many years in the corporate structure, whereby, in terms of decision making and governance, it is, it is concentrated in a few individuals, or in very, like like a sort of a club that I would say, the top executive that are making decisions. So having said that, is that, a DAO is supposed to bring up a new structure that is more fluid, in the sense that decision making and governance, it is distributed, so that like all the participants of a DAO have a stake, so that you move from a sort of a shareholding type of organization structure to more of a stakeholding, yeah, whereby every stakeholder has a say, and it is well structured, and in terms of governance, it is very open, so that we know from the word go that that if my contribution is this is what I get. If my stake is this is what I get. Those are very clear, and it is open for everyone to see, so that it is not some sort of a structure whereby decisions are made in a boardroom by a few powerful individuals or factions. Yeah. But again, that does not, as Choi has put it, that does not remove the regulatory environment. So in this case, we are just changing the corporate structure, but we are not saying that now it can exist outside regulatory framework or outside the law, so that it becomes lawless.
So the DAO was proposed as an alternate corporate structure to solve the agency problem, right? The agency problem basically is that principal agents who could have different motivations from the principal owners or the stakeholders of the organization. Supposedly, the shareholder, the board of directors are elected by shareholders to represent their interests, but more often than not, there's an agency problem because the board of directors have their own vested interests, and then the board of directors move into the executive committee, and the executive committee have their own vested interests, and then you have your managers, and all the way down the line, all those people, and all of them have their own vested interests, right? For example, if I paper push, I'm not really doing anything for the organization, but I'm going, okay, I don't want to make this decision, I'm going to push it that guy, and then I push it. And then there are so many zombies in organizations that are not really contributing to the bottom line, or contributing to any productive element of the company, that that becomes agents in the company, that's supposed to represent your interests. So instead of appointing agents, why not directly contribute to my interests, because I have a stake in this company? So this is why a DAO was formed, and a governance token is supposed to give people with stake the decision-making ability to move things along and to contribute to the DAO at the same time, and get rewarded for the contribution to the DAO, right? That doesn't remove any corporate structure requirements. Basically, it's supposed to create a better corporate structure that is that removes the agency problem, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to exist as a corporation, right? It still needs to exist as a alternate structure with protections, rights, as well as liabilities. If the DAO as a whole decided to, hey, let's vote and scam everybody, the law have to be able to hold them accountable for that decision. Correct?
Yeah.
But you see, so this is things that I think for future of the DAO needs to be sorted out. What the rights, you cannot see it as it has to exist within the system, or is to create a new structure within the system, but it cannot exist outside of the system, right? And we see new structures all the time, right? Hedge funds never existed, and now hedge funds are everywhere, and there's a structure, and there's what they are allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. DAOs is the same thing. It's just for regulators to sit down, stop the people talking about all the jargon, and then understand that it's just another corporate structure.
That is very, very well put. So tell me, Choi, as we are approaching the end of our conversation today, when you're looking at the world, the tech world, the blockchain world in the next 5, 10 years, given the issues we've discussed relating to regulation, relating to the law, and the complexities that arise in things like DAOs, like you've discussed here, taking a view in 5 to 10 years, considering all those variables and dynamics, what do you see?
In 5 years' time, the technology is going to be completely different, and then you'll be having this conversation again about something else.
You didn't just say that.
I did. I mean, if we had this conversation 2 years ago, we would not have talked about NFTs. We would not have talked about DAOs. We would not have talked about self-sovereign IDs. We would not have talked about, or even the layer 2 that just Polygon that just advertised. There was no layer 2, right? Let's be honest. I mean, really, fundamentally, our technology is moving so fast. If you're talking to me in 5 years' time, we're sitting here talking with some alien concept that that is new. That is just brand new, and the regulators will be struggling to understand that too. We could be talking about the super DAO, or I don't know, some other concept that will come into play, invented by some really smart people who want to create or solve a certain problem. So the only constant is change.
Yeah.
And I think regulators cannot forget the fundamental reason why the regulation exists, which is to help the people. So if you take that as the core of your structure, the core of understanding technology, you have to then understand exactly what benefits this technology brings to people, and whether or not your policies, your regulations, your laws that you're going to write manages to bring these benefits to the people, right, in the safest way possible. I mean, technically, that should be the core That should be the core of any regulations. That should be core of any regulator's approach towards technology, towards innovation. Innovation is just going to happen, right? 5 years is too long, not in the blockchain space, right?
So let me ask the same question in a different way. Do you foresee a conflict, again, given the topic of the day, do you foresee a conflict between innovation and regulation?
It's an internal conflict. I mean, technically, it's not so much a conflict between innovation and regulation. It's more of a conflict between understanding innovation and regulation, right? And it all boils down to communication and the people that you have communicating these to the people in charge. If you try to bury in jargon, you try to show that you're different, you take out the people communication skills out of this,
Yeah,
you're gonna fail.
this is interesting.
That's the bottom line.
This is so interesting. Choi, we've really enjoyed talking to you today. I like how authentic your thinking is. I like how radical it is. I like how discomforting it is, even for those of us who want to run away with grand ideas about what blockchain can do. You just have a way of sanitizing us and bringing the conversation where it should be. And for that, personally, I've really benefited. That was a very interesting conversation. But I'll be doing myself a lot of disservice if I didn't ask the last question, which is, given everything you've shared, you've said you're not a lawyer, but clearly you have such interesting perspectives about issues that pertains to innovation, blockchain specifically, with the law and the regulation. So if you're to direct any of our listeners or viewers on resources that could help them expand their knowledge in the space that we have conversed on today, the law, regulation, and blockchain, what would be your advice?
You mean what to read or where to?
Yeah, whichever resources. Would you refer them to somebody? Or would you tell them to talk to their lawyers? Would you take them to read?
Yeah, of course. I mean, before you do anything, talk to your lawyers to make sure that what you're doing is not outside of the purview of the law. At least you don't do anything illegal. Right. We do have my project Oz. We maintain a YouTube channel called Oz Living. Uh, we interview lawyers. We have a whole segment on asset protection, offshoring. If you're setting up a project, where you want to set it up and how you want to set it up and where you have your bank account and what are risks involved in all of that. I mean, you can go to our channel and check it out. We also interview many different blockchain projects, especially in Asia, and what they've done and how they set it up and things like that. So that could be an interesting resource for you. Again, I'm very glad you've invited me here, but I don't have a legal context on what's happening in Africa and Kenya. So everything I say is based on my experience in Asia. So if you like an Asian context, and give it to you, but if you like what can you do in Africa, you will need to consult with an African legal firm. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Or Paul seems to be very knowledgeable.
Very knowledgeable, yeah, exactly.
I'm not a lawyer as well. Disclaimer.
Your disclaimer now. Everything we say is for information.
So Choi. So Choi, from myself, a big thank you for honoring us with this invite. I've been a big beneficiary of the lessons you've shared today. And we hope and believe that we'll continue engaging in the future. It is always such a delight talking to you. I say a big thank you. And I invite Paul to make his final remarks, and then we can call it wraps. Paul, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julian. Indeed, this was an awesome conversation today. It was hot, and I learned a lot myself. And it's a pleasure having you, Choi. You always make this show to be very interesting, and to meet the expectation to all our viewers. And to all our viewers, wherever you're watching from, we really appreciate you to being part of this conversation. And we look forward to having you again next Tuesday. And probably it would be very nice of you to, just to have at the back of your mind that every Tuesday, every Thursday, we always have these meetings at 7. Today, we specifically made it an exception because of Choi, where he's calling from, so that we don't have to keep him very late. So please bear with us. Any other time, we always have this conversation at 7. Thank you very much, everyone who has been part of this great conversation. Depending on where you are calling from, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, until we see you next time again. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Thank you, too, Paul. Bye, Choi. Talk to you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye.